A baby's first cry signifies the fear it feels about getting into a strange world. Then it tastes the warm milk of its mother, feels the love, and thinks, maybe life's not so scary after all. But what happens if the mother, who ought to alleviate the fears, shows you how cruel life could be? Hope for a savior. Maybe this story is about a baby boy who got abandoned right after birth. He was not fed by the nurse who was supposed to take care of him. The first few hours he spent in this world were in pain and hunger. The whole story starts with Alisa Marie, the baby's mother, sneaking out of the hospital immediately after delivering her baby. No one can explain how she went about it. Alisa was an only female child. Her mother died when she was 3 years old, leaving her to be raised by her dad and her older brothers. Unlike many who were raised alongside boys, she was very ladylike. Her dad went the extra mile to ensure she didn't feel her mom's absence, braiding her hair and buying colorful dresses. But he just couldn't get it right. Everybody considered her odd because of her weird sense of style and her tall hairdos, which led to her not having many friends or admirers. It didn't help that she had to wear glasses and braces. The girl was mostly ignored by her peers. When everyone else was getting dramatic prom proposals and huge Valentine's gifts, she stood in the shadows longing to be acknowledged. Then it finally happened. In her penultimate year in high school, Alisa got an admirer, Ron. Ron had joined the school that year. Being the smart girl that she was, the school's principal asked Alisa to show him around and help him with his studies. Ron saw past her awkwardness, and after a while, he and Alisa became a couple. During the relationship, she and her boyfriend started doing things she wasn't comfortable with. She wasn't naive, but she was eager to please, and that put her in trouble. Her desire to please got her pregnant. She suspected it when her period was late, but she pushed back the thought. When she started having major symptoms, she knew she had to take a test. She got a pregnancy kit and found out she was pregnant at the store where she bought the kit. The attendant slipped her a flyer that gave her directions to where she could get an abortion. After confirming she was pregnant, she decided to take the attendant's silent advice to get rid of the baby. She slipped out of school one day and went to the place. It was a scary-looking place, but she had made up her mind. As she was about to enter the place, she saw 2 young people crying by the entrance. Their friend had died during the procedure. Immediately, she turned around and headed back to school. It was a wake-up call. She knew that she couldn't go through with the abortion, but she had no clue what to do next. Alisa couldn't talk to anyone because she was so ashamed. She even ended the relationship with her boyfriend without telling him why. She did not want him involved in the decision-making. When her pregnancy began to show, the teenager left home, leaving only a note that said she was going to find herself. Her family had noticed that she had not been herself before she ran away, but they felt she was sad due to heartbreak. They had tried their best to console her, but she told them she needed to heal on her own, so they had to let her be. When they saw the note, they contacted the ex-boyfriend to get more details, but he didn't have any clue. They did all they could to find her, all to no avail. They had no clue she was pregnant. Alisa panicked because her dad and siblings had warned fervently against getting pregnant. Her siblings were extremely protective, and she didn't know how far they would go if they found out. All through the months before the baby's birth, Alisa lived a horrible life. She got a job washing dishes at a restaurant, but the pay could barely get her a place to stay, so she started working more than one job to sustain herself. She was only 17 years old, and there was only so much she could do. Alisa knew that she couldn't take care of the baby herself, but she decided not to get her family involved no matter how bad it got. She started thinking of other ways not to have the baby in her life. One day, while working, her water broke. She was rushed to the hospital, and after several gruesome hours of labor, the baby was born. The nurses took the baby from her to get it cleaned. When one returned to give her the baby to feed, they found only a note. His first name should be Bill and his second name Carrie, it read. After seeing the note, the nurse rushed out to tell people what had happened. Due to the severity of the situation, the nurse got carried away and forgot to feed little Bill. Bill was left alone with no care. A volunteer at the hospital, Anna, overheard the nurses discussing the baby who had been abandoned. She heard that he had been put into the nursery and decided to take a peek. Anna heard his cry before she saw him. He was already out of breath from crying so hard, and his cries had reduced to little sobs. As a volunteer, she knew where the emergency baby food was kept. She hurried to make him the formula. The nurse who ought to feed the baby came in not long after and found out that Bill was no longer in the cot. She panicked, thinking Alisa had returned for her baby, and she ran out to check. On her way out, she found Anna in the office close to the nursery feeding Bill. That was how Anna began to care for Bill. Anna would go to the hospital very early to take care of Bill. She would pick him up, feed him, and watch over him until she was needed elsewhere. The nurses sometimes left her alone to tend to the baby all day. One day, Anna got to the nursery and found that Bill's breathing was labored. She was so scared and called for the nurses. Several tests were carried out, and the doctor found out that he had fluid in his respiratory system. Before that, the hospital had started looking for ways to get Bill a home. They had contacted social services, but due to Bill's ailment, they kept him in the hospital until he was fine. The representative of social services was asked to come back for him. Anna knew they had started looking for a home for Bill, and she didn't want to see him go to just any home. She casually told a friend about Bill, the circumstances surrounding his birth, and how fond of him she had grown. She concluded by saying she wished she knew someone who could adopt him. Anna had made the statement without knowing it was just what her friend needed to hear. Her friend's sister had been trying for a baby for several years without any success. Several IVF treatments and fertility procedures had failed. They had thought of adopting but preferred to adopt a baby. It was their lucky chance. Immediately, Anna's friend called her sister and told her about Bill. The sister indicated her interest and contacted the hospital. The hospital asked them to come over to see Bill and decide if they wanted to keep him or not. After seeing Bill, they fell in love with him and decided they were going to adopt him. Anna had dressed him up and combed his hair in preparation for their arrival. Her joy knew no bounds when she heard the news. The hospital management was also pleased about the development. They contacted social services and worked on getting the papers ready for the adoption. Everything went so smoothly, and within a few days, Bill was on his way to his new home. Anna was made his godmother, and there was certainly no better person for that role. The little boy will not remember the circumstances around his birth unless he is told, but one thing is for certain: he got lucky. He may never meet his biological parents, but he got a loving family that he deserved. His story is proof that you don't have to be related to some people before you can call them family. So, what do you think about William's story? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Also, if you found this story inspiring, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.